Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. What a great turnout. We're so excited to be presenting to you today on navigating stress. So it should be a great presentation. And we are all here with the Healing Collective of Western Colorado. And I started this about 3 years ago. We did a couple of large expos at the rec center where we invited any and whatever practitioners in the area that wanted to come and be there and present. And then it was just a little too much work and a little too much effort to put that on. And so we're scaling down a bit and seeing how this format works for my well-being and the well-being of the collective. So we're going to see how these go. But they're also a lot more, I think, directed towards one theme. And so then you guys kind of get to choose what you'd really like to learn about, and you get some really intentional presentations that speak right to that theme, which I think is really great because it can be a little bit overwhelming to hear and be introduced to everything at once. So it's a great opportunity for you to get just the perfect little tidbits of what might serve you in these certain areas of your life. So the Healing Collective is open to any practitioners, any local practitioners who want to participate. We have different membership levels, and you get different benefits depending on those. But we meet twice a month, and we get together to help support each other. We work really hard to educate one another on our own modalities, but then also our business techniques and anything that we've learned elsewhere. So we're really trying to strengthen the collaboration and the working together of all of us practitioners in this area so that we can use our wisdom together to help support the healing of the community, because we know that we cannot heal alone, right? It happens together. And that a lot of us, when we're going through something, need it approached from a lot of different angles. And that maybe when we're at different stages, we need a different approach that addresses where we're at that time a little bit differently than something else. So in our collective, we're trying to be aware of and educate each other and the community on how many great options you have locally to be well and take care of yourself. So this is our second panel discussion that we've had so far, trying in this format. Our first one was on chronic pain, and we still have a few leftover handouts from that on the collective table. So when after this presentation you have time to visit the tables out front and you know of someone with chronic pain or you yourself experience that, you can grab one of those last handouts and learn from some of our practitioners different approaches to that as well. And our next panel discussion will be in April. We put it on the third Sunday of April, and that one is going to be on autoimmune diseases. So we'll have another panel of 5 here presenting for you on that topic, and should be great. When you walked in, you hopefully picked up one of these, which is your info packet and the write-ups of each of our panel members, but then also a few of our other active members within the collective. So that is your information on it. It has their contact, has their approach to it, there's some teachings on it, and how to reach them as far as different ways to navigate stress. You'll also have 2 pieces of paper. Some will have an index card and a piece of paper. One of those, the paper is going to be put your name on that, and I'm going to pass, or maybe I'll just have you guys pass them down the line when they're ready, and it's going to go in for a raffle. So we have different gifts. We have some gift certificates from our panel members. We have a water bottle, and we have an immune defense tincture that we're raffling off today. So if you, and don't worry, you're just putting, it's just a gift to you. You're just putting your name, no email. Nobody's going to contact you for putting it in there. It's just a gift to you. So put your name on one of those papers and pass it over. The other one is for, so if you have just 2 pieces of paper, that's fine. Use one of those. But you might have an index card. And that one is for if you have a question. So they're going to be presenting on a lot of new information and giving you some new tips. So if you have a question that you would like to be addressed in the panel format, you can write it down on the card. And the reason we're having you write it down instead of just announce is that it's more efficient and it helps you make it real succinct because you have to write. And I know you don't want to write a whole novel today. So you make your nice short direct question, and then during the Q&A portion I will collect those questions. And if you have a specific panel member you would like to address the question specifically to, you can put their name on that card. Otherwise, I'll just choose who I think would answer that question the best. If you, not the best, but anyway, have a good input on that. And if you have more specific or private questions, that you can hold those for after. Each of the panel members is going to have a table out front, and you can address them then. And during this talk, it's under 2 hours we'll be in here. The bathrooms are straight down the hall, so if you need to get up and take a break, please do so. And other than that, that's about it. Oh yeah, I'm Erin Easton. So I started this healing collective, and I'm the owner of New Leaf Mindfulness Coaching. So I do mindful yoga, I do nature retreats, do group meditation classes, which I have a great one coming up on Saturday. It's a 4-hour meditation workshop on realigning your intentions with your heart. So we'll spend a lot of great intentional meditative time on that together and discussing that together. So if you're interested in that, I'll also be at the collective booth out front afterwards. So I will now introduce the topic for today, which is stress. So we try really hard in these discussions, we talk together to pick topics that seem really relevant and touching our community specifically. And stress, of course, is a huge one. And even more so after the pandemic, is that we've seen in our world the levels of stress rising and the impacts of those on our communities. So in 2022, the average level of stress in Americans was a 5 out of 10. And about a quarter, so 25% of those people said that sometimes it was to the point where they couldn't function in their daily lives. So that's a lot of people suffering from stress. And in 2023, the most common stressors in America were people's health and trying to navigate the health system. They were money, so financial, and the state of our kind of government and society, and specifically economy related things with that. So these stress levels that are so high give us a lot of risks in our health, right, in our daily living. And so they make our daily tasks seem a lot harder. They can make our hassles seem a lot more difficult. And it changes our general life outlook and our goals, and it affects our body physiologically. So it can, increase inflammation in our bodies. It's very wearing and depleting on our immune system, and it increases the risk of host ailments, including digestive issues, heart disease, weight gain, and stroke. So we really want to address these and start giving you guys some better ways of navigating this stress in your lives. And in all these people, with that level 5 stress being the average, people are having a hard time finding ways to cope. That 3 in 5 won't talk about their stress to others because they're afraid that it will burden other people to share what they're going through. A lot of people say they don't look for help because they're under the assumption that therapy doesn't work. And a lot of people say they can't seek treatment because they don't have the time. And then a lot of people, it's financial reasons or they don't have insurance. So we're going to try to address some of that here today to give people more ways to handle their stress in positive manners and give you guys some resources to help you do that along your healing journey. So we are going to start. Oh, and I don't think I asked you guys, did you decide who's first? You're in order. Okay.
Well, kind of. It's me, then Lisa.
Okay, great. All right, so our first speaker then is going to be Sara here, Schifino. And Sara is a transpersonal psychotherapist and coach. She has a master's degree in transpersonal counseling psychology from Nairobi University and is a certified practitioner of NLP, so neuro-linguistic programming. Sara is also a yoga instructor and shamanic journey work practitioner. She owns Kala Transpersonal Coaching and sees clients both in person and online. So, thank you, Sara.
Do I clip this?
Yeah, you can clip it if you want, or you can hold it if that.
I'll do that. Okay. Do you mind horribly if I set this right here? Great, just in case. Hi. Thank you for being here. I wanted to start by just saying, while we're talking about stress, there are actually healthy forms of stress as well. And so just addressing that there is a difference. Healthy forms of stress are the stressors that provide just enough friction in our lives to motivate us or inspire us or catalyze us into action. They're the stressors that are manageable and promote growth. Then we have stress that's out of balance. We have too little stress, which kind of ends up in us being on the couch, maybe a little too much. Like there's not enough friction and motivation, right? And there's not enough catalyzing energy and events to help move us toward what we want. And then there's too much stress, and that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today. And when we're overloaded with stress, it can be so overwhelming that it can cause us to almost go into a freeze pattern. And so that's one thing to ask yourself first is this stress that I'm feeling, is this manageable? Is this helpful for me? Or is this something I need to make some shifts in my life around? And so when I work with clients, the first thing I want to assess is my client safe, right? Like, are they experiencing or living in a stressful environment that's actually unsafe? If the answer is yes to that, then we need to take immediate action in that direction. If they're safe in their living environment, in their life, then we start looking at, okay, what's your lifestyle like? Like, how are you supporting your system and your being so that you can handle stressors in life? So we start looking at basic things like food, right, diet, are we getting enough water, am I hydrated? What am I bringing into my body, substance-wise, information and media-wise? There's a lot out there right now, even some of the things Erin was just mentioning. It's so easy to turn on the news and to get overwhelmed by some of the atrocities that are happening around the globe. At some point, maybe turning that off, right, or really limiting that kind of input becomes a better choice for you for a while, at least. how's your sleep, right? How's your sleep hygiene? So looking at just some basics first, and then going into movement, right? So we've got sleep, diet, movement. Are you exercising? Are you getting some form of movement in your body? Because we can store stress and emotions in the body. It can get kind of gunked up inside our muscles and fascia, and the more we can move and flush that through, the better. And then, of course, there's too much exercise, and that's its own thing. But if you are exercising, how much, and is it the right fit for you? Is it the right kind of exercise for what you need? So starting to talk about, like, we're looking at the whole system. So mind, body, and emotions, right? So movement is going to be more on the body side. Food and nourishment on the body side. Information and media, social media even, right, can be more on the mental, emotional side of things. So once I address kind of some of those basic things with clients, then I start looking at, okay, what else are you doing in your life that's resourcing you? What are someone's resources? And you might take a moment to just think to yourself right now, what are your resources? Like, what are the things in life that are supports for you? What are the things that maybe bring you joy? What are the things that help calm you down? Because we can start to get, if your to-do list is so huge, we can sometimes forget to do the fun things. And you have to do the fun things too. Got to find a balance in there. I just came upon a book called Fear and Gratitude Can't Coexist by Kimberly Offord. Are you familiar with this book? Has anybody heard of this book? You have, okay. I hadn't heard of it before, but it's true. So when we go about mindset, a lot of times stress is fear-based, right? And so if we can do things like shift into a state of gratitude, a gratitude journal before you go to bed. I know that's gotten me through some seriously hard times in my life. Just simply shifting the mindset into what I would call the positive polarity, out of that negative polarity of fear and into orienting toward something positive and building that sense of gratitude inside yourself, because it literally will essentially turn off the fear in you as you turn on the gratitude. It's not that the shift in mindset is going to solve all the external factors, but I'm looking again at how can my clients resource themselves so that then we can deal with those external factors from a resource state. So shifting from negative to positive polarity, doing something like a gratitude journal, and looking at what other resources you have in your life. I mentioned a couple, but what activities do you have? Who are the people in your life that make you laugh? What brings you joy? Is it reading? Is it being out in nature, which in and of itself is its own resource and support system? Do you have pets? Are there groups that you're a part of? Because social isolation, as Erin mentioned, COVID has done a number on us, and isolation has been a big part of that. So, you know, I look with my clients at what is your social engagement. And the cool thing about starting to resource yourself, if you're thinking about like body, mind, and emotions, is they're all interrelated. So as you start addressing one, they all get addressed. So it doesn't really matter where you start necessarily. For example, doing mindfulness practices can be an incredible way to start to resource oneself, because the mind, it does so many wonderful things for us, but it can also do a little bit of a disservice and increase our stress levels. For example, when the mind takes us into the past, we can have nostalgia and like warm feelings, warm memories. We can learn from past experiences, but the mind can also take us into like regret and guilt and remorse, and like then we get stuck in these negative polarity feelings that aren't actually helping us here, and we're no longer now in the present moment and living from where we're at now, right? So on the opposite side of that coin, the mind takes us into the future, We feel excited, we feel hopeful, we get curious, what's coming? There's anticipation, and then there's fear, and there's worry, and maybe dread about what might be coming. And that's all made up. Like, none of that has even happened yet. It's just the power of the mind to create our reality. And as an NLP practitioner, that's something we work with a lot. It's really based on the understanding that our beliefs and our thoughts create our reality for us. So what are we putting out there, and how can we shift that in order to kind of live ourselves into a reality that works better for us? Doing breath work can help bring the mind out of the past and out of the future and right into the now. It gives the mind something to do, especially if you're doing like counting. Counting your in-breaths, counting your out-breaths. If we have time, we'll maybe do a breath work practice. But breath work is wonderful for calming the nervous system, bringing you out of sympathetic and into parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest nervous system. It can calm the emotions, relax the body, lower blood pressure. And by addressing that, you might think of that as mind, because you're counting, you're engaging the mind to do this breath work, but it's having a physiological effect, and the emotions are also impacted. So that's why I'm saying you can start kind of anywhere. You can start on the mind level and have that filter through the rest of the system. You can start on a body level, right? That movement, dance, running, like whatever you love to do. If you're going to your workouts, your exercise, you're like, I hate this, right? Like, well, it's not going to have the same effect for you. It's still going to be good for the body, but maybe you're not getting the endorphins that you might get if you're doing something you actually really love. So as we talk about that, the joy, one thing I've been getting more and more curious about is, I don't know if you're familiar, but cortisol is the hormone that's released in the body with stress, right? It's the stress hormone. And so if we start bringing some other, substances, if you will, in the body, they're called the happy hormones, but they're not all the hormones. If we start increasing their levels, then we can start to counteract some of that cortisol in the system. So I'm talking about serotonin, I'm sure you've heard of these, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. Oxytocin is the only actual hormone in there, but they're grouped together called the happy hormones. And things that increase the levels of these serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins are eating well, so we already talked about that, exercise, and specifically there's been studies done around martial arts, yoga, come talk to me, and weight training, and dancing. So find something you love to do. What did you say?
And hugging.
And yes, I'm getting there, yes. Sunlight, which we live in this state where thankfully we get a lot of sunlight, but if you're sitting indoors and looking at it, that's not going to do the same for you as it would if you went out into it. We've had this nice mild winter so far, so we have plenty of time to be getting out in that. Laughter, touch, and that's the oxytocin, right? Hugs, petting a pet, getting body work. Those are all going to release those happy hormones. So once my clients are now in a resource state, now we can start looking at, okay, now what? Right? And this is when with that calmer emotions, a calmer mind and body, we actually have more of a capacity mentally for focus, clear thinking, and decision making. Right? We've got to be able to have that first. And then we can look around, what do I actually have agency around? Right? Control over. Like, what can I actually do? Because a lot of stressors are outside of me and I can't control them. So one thing is inner conflict. When you think, ooh, part of me wants to do this and part of me wants to do that. And it's like tug of war when both teams are the same amount of strong, if you will, and the rope's not going anywhere, right? You're paralyzed. So we resolve internal conflict so that you can actually clear a path forward for yourself. We look at chunking, right? If you have this, like all of this stuff is so overwhelming, we start taking off bite-sized portions, and then we do triage, like, okay, what has to come first? What's the most important, right? We do that, don't even worry about the rest of this stuff. Then we'll get to the next thing, right? And that's why even though I'm a psychotherapist, I like to work in a coaching capacity, because there's accountability, there's homework, there's a lot of contact with me in between sessions, and there's follow-up so that we can stay on track with goals and working toward what it is you're looking for. I always tell my clients to celebrate everything. I try to celebrate with them, even the small stuff, right? Celebrate that you just did the one thing that's been on your list for like a month or 4 or whatever, right? Celebrate the big things, celebrate the small things, and then get help if you need it, right? Talking to friends is great, but sometimes we need the help of a therapist or a primary care doctor or coach or mentor. So finding that when you need it too. Thank you.
All right, that was great. And I'll probably collect the raffle ones before our last presenter and the questions for that. So if you need a pen, Donna Lee got some extra pens. You can kind of raise a hand, or we can pass these through. So, anyone need a pen? All right, you guys came prepared. Great. Our next presenter is going to be Lisa Boffa. Did I say that right? Yes. Boffa. Sorry. And Lisa is a psychiatric nurse practitioner who has lived in Montrose, Colorado for over 20 years. When she was 17, she joined the Coast Guard. She traveled extensively and lived in Japan for 4 years. This experience informed her open and collaborative approach to mental health. Lisa then studied nursing and eventually earned her doctorate of nursing practice, family nurse practitioner, and psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner licenses. So, welcome, Lisa.
Hello. So stress is what brings us together today. And I'm stressed because I generally don't do public speaking, so please bear with me. So what is stress? Scientifically speaking, stress is overactivation of your fight or flight response. And the fight or flight response serves a purpose. It keeps you safe. It's for survival. But it becomes pathological when it's overactivated all the time. The cortisol levels in your body rise when your adrenal gland, your adrenaline, is stimulated. And that can do good things if you need to run away, if you're being pursued by a predator, but bad things if you're in that state all the time. It can increase your heart rate. It increases your focus and attention. It also can suppress the immune system, increase blood sugar levels, and increase inflammation. And that causes burnout, which we've all experienced, I'm sure, at some point in our lives. And it can lead to pathology like insomnia, muscle aches, hot flashes, chronic fatigue, disease states, and apathy. You can have emotional symptoms of irritability, burnout, tearfulness, and then when it gets really bad, you can develop anxiety and depression, which can become chronic. So what can be done to mitigate stress in a world that applauds people who are superhuman and looks at work-life balance as a luxury? Well, we need to change the way we think. We need to change the way we think. By the time people come to see me in my capacity as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, they have generally tried a lot of different modalities to help themselves, or they don't know what different modalities they can try to help themselves, or they need permission from a scientist type of person to tune into themselves and to take a break, because a lot of people don't feel like they should take a break. So how I help people. I help them identify the source of their stress. And the sources of stress can be situational, work stress, family stress, holiday stress, all that fun stuff. It can be physical, it can be a disease state, chronic pain. It can be a loss of control when you're in a situation where you have no control. There's nothing you can do to change it. And it can come from a feeling of being overwhelmed. There is too much on your plate. If we can identify the source of the stress, we can work on it. And this is where I complement the complementary practices, because you guys bring so much to the table that can really help with stress. People come to me often wanting a pill to fix their stress, and it's not going to work. A pill does not fix your life. You have to do the work, and the work is where it gets hard. People want me to fix their interpersonal relationships. Again, you have to do the work. A pill won't fix that. So the first thing we look at is balance. We look at easy things like you were talking about sleep. Sleep is very restorative. What does your sleep look like? Why are you drinking coffee at 4 p.m.? Things like that. That's an easy one, and sleep can be so restorative. And then understanding what can and can't be changed and coming to an acceptance of what can't be changed. Changing the way we look at it, accepting it can't be changed, but we can respond to it differently. There's a type of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. I love cognitive behavioral therapy. It says if you change the way you think, you change the way you feel, and then your behavior changes. It's like a little triangle. So you change how you think, you change how you feel, and your behavior changes. And that, in turn, changes yourself, your future, and how others respond to you. And it makes a profound change, which is cool. Then there are complementary practices. For example, increasing exercise decreases cortisol. It's just a scientific fact. It's very cool. It also increases endorphins. And exercise can increase endorphins as much as an SSRI, which is one of those little antidepressant pills that I prescribe. So it's not always the answer, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. There are body-mind practices like yoga, karate, and even walking. They've done a study showing that if you walk and your eyes go back and forth as you're looking at leaves or trees, and you're thinking things through, it's almost as productive as EMDR therapy, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It helps you process your thoughts in such a way that your thoughts live in different places in your mind, that if it's trauma that you're processing, it becomes less traumatic. It's really cool science. So I try to teach some coping mechanisms. There's only so much I can do in my practice, and I refer a lot out to therapists to teach things like grounding techniques, where you can feel yourself in your body, in the present moment, not worrying about the future or what Aunt Sally said over Christmas. And breath work. Breath work is very powerful. If you can, like you were saying, count your breathing and be mindful of your breath. If you can do exercise practices like yoga where you are breathing intentionally, it can be very grounding, very centering, and very healing. Meditation is also very powerful if you're able to quiet your mind and do it. Some people can, some people can't. I love it. My boyfriend hates it. It's really annoying. And then there's reality testing. Some people tend to catastrophize their life and say everything is bad, this is why. But if you can look at the reality of what's really going on, and you can say, what's the worst that could happen? If the worst happened, could I cope with that? I've done it so far. So yeah, that's reality testing. And then education about stress, about depression, about anxiety. Education is so empowering. If people can understand what's happening to themselves, they can take action and help themselves, and that is empowering because then they're in control again. So sometimes these interventions will get you partway there, but sometimes they're not enough, and that's where I come in. Medicine can play a part. Sometimes people have so much stress in their lives that it leads to anxiety, depression, burnout, apathy, all those wonderful things that we don't want. And in that case, I can help supplement them. I can help teach them learning techniques, but at the same time, they may need medication to help get them to a place where they can do the learning, where they can do the techniques. And then at some point, when they become stronger in those coping techniques, they may be able to go off the medication. Sometimes they can't. And that's where the science of what I do comes in. But the goal is to tame the anxiety, to tame the depression, get the serotonin back up, get the dopamine working in natural ways or with medication if need be, and then eventually to not need that anymore. So I don't know where I am on time. Am I good?
You have 2 minutes if you want.
I think we're good. Thank you.
All right, so our next presenter is going to be Dulce Bell-Bulley, and she spent the first 15 years of her career as a medical social worker. She obtained a master's degree in transpersonal psychology, following which she trained as a hypnotherapist and opened OSA Transpersonal Coaching LLC.
Counseling, not coaching.
Counseling, sorry. And transpersonal psychology includes and respects the individual's spiritual life and may involve working with the healing power of nature. Thanks, Dulce.
How does this thing work?
It's on.
You just clip it. Clip. Oh dear. Elizabeth, will you clip me?
Sure. Oh, I think it's this way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. See, if you're stressed, just ask your friend. That's the way to go. And let's see what this thing does. Ta-da! The magic whiteboard. Hey guys, I'm so glad to see you all here. This is a big topic, as Sarah mentioned earlier. There's just so much going on, and stress is very, very difficult. I want to talk a little bit about a model that an English pediatrician by the name of D.W. Winnicott presented some 60 years ago about the stress cycle. And he called it the biological basis of excitement. He was a pediatrician, so he observed babies. And it's a very, very simple model. It's only 3 words. And the first one is tension. So, of course, we can look at this for us as stress, some tension, some stress in our lives. Can you guys over there? Okay. So just think about it. He's a pediatrician, so think of this from the perspective of a baby, tense. Maybe the baby's hungry. It needs something. And the next stage, Winnicott called climax, which we can also call release. So in our case with the baby eats. Oh, yes. Oh, relief. There's the release here. And then here's the key part of the entire cycle, which is relax. And that's what we want to get to. That's what stress is about, is moving from this to that. And the thing that we do, though, is sometimes we do weird stuff here instead of actually releasing the energy. We will binge eat, watch excessive TV watching, drink alcohol, smoke. And so we're not actually really dealing with the stress, are we? We're just kind of zoning out or pigging out or whatever it is. And so we never really get to this. We may fall into some kind of coma, but we're not really relaxing. So this is where some of those resource states Sarah was talking about and Lisa were talking about are really important. Now, what happens with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder is that sometimes those everyday stresses that we all have, you know, the checkbook is low, the car needs fixing, or heaven forbid, there's a lump in your breast, or the marriage is failing, or the kid is in really big trouble. We have these states that have been discussed, that there are tools to work with that, primarily the breath work, of course. But what happens with PTSD is we have a life quake. Something so darn awful happens that the body just absorbs it. Because everything we are, everything we do happens in the body. It's the body. That's what Winnicott is saying in his model, watching these babies, seeing the baby, you know, maybe the baby has gas, and then it needs to burp, and then it can be gratified and relaxed. So with PTSD, we can't actually get to these places because the trauma is so caught in the body. And Peter Levine talks about this, Bessel van der Kolk talks about this. And you can even feel it. Your shoulders are hunched up. You know, you're contracted. There could be a sort of a flight or fight, you know, or perhaps your muscles are very flaccid and weak, and, you know, you're not really able to push through things. That could be a sense of being sort of paralyzed in that freeze state of the flight or flight freeze process. So in order for us to get to this relaxation, we need to be in the body, working with the body, because that's where the memories are, that's where the stuff is. It's not articulate. And what happens sometimes is people go into therapy and the therapist is very committed, the client is very committed, but the languaging isn't happening because the trauma's in the body. And there's this talking and you can't, and sometimes the client can become angry. Peter Levine talks about this. He says the client becomes really upset because the tension is not being released. And so identifying where the stress is in the body is critical. And that can really be done in the first session. Just, you know, it's the client and the therapist can get a good sense of where the stress is held. Sometimes there's just vast, empty, untouchable places within that the individual can't reach because they're so, the emotions are so trapped, there's disassociation. These layers of stress can show up, you know, a trauma can occur years ago and still be held in the body and not released. And then an event, you guys know this already, something will happen and the trauma will come up in the body. I'll just give you a small personal example. Dear friends of mine, whom I really love deeply, he had a medical incident that left him severely compromised. And their life was actually over because of what happened to him. And I was walking to see him at the nursing home with my little dog, and I'm walking along and I did something Lisa said. I catastrophized. I'm walking along and with my little dog and I'm like, why? The little dog can't walk that far. Oh no, why didn't I wear a coat? Oh geez, these are the wrong shoes. And I thought, wait a minute, you're just walking in the neighborhood. What's going on? I recognized I was catastrophizing and I started breathing. I'm here, my feet are in my shoes, I'm walking. I thought, why am I catastrophizing? Then it reminds me, oh yes, this is like my husband's cancer journey where our lives were completely over because of the cancer journey and his consequent death. But even deeper than that were the memories I had of walking in the streets of the African city in which I was raised, in which there was a high degree of violence and civil war. So even beneath that, so it's not like I'm going to get my needs met here and I'm suddenly going to, you know, be not in a civil war, or I'm suddenly, you know, not going to have my husband die. No, that it's impossible. That can't happen. Those events happen. But I can get to this. I can get to relaxing. I can say, I am not there now. That's CBT. I am not there now. I am here now. This is what is happening now. I am breathing now. I am walking now. It's okay. And so the application of your toolbox is really important. My toolbox consists of essential oils. I light a candle. I get in a hot Epsom salt bath. I pray. I meditate. I make an appointment with my therapist. I call a good friend. I journal. I go for a walk. I crank Pandora dance music and just get down in the living room, because that moves the body. That helps. And so therefore, even though this tension and stress has occurred here, even though some of these things will never really go away, I can still relax. I can move on. So I'd just like to invite you to remember that your body is your home. It's your home, okay? You live here. This is your place. And you have the right to be safe in your body, breathing, taking care of it, having that loving relationship with your body. You care about it. You're going to take care of it. It has a voice. It wants to tell you something. It wants to feel reconnected with you. So thank you for your time, and I'll visit with you later. Woohoo!
I'm going to steal the mic. Very helpless.
All right. Our next presenter is Shayna Keller. She's a naturopathic doctor and is in the state of Colorado. She received her bachelor's in biology from Western Colorado University, and she received a doctorate in naturopathic medicine from Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington in 2020. Since then, she has owned and operated a naturopathic medical clinic on the western slope of Colorado. She currently sees patients in Montrose and is taking new female and pediatric patients.
Okay, I think that should be good. Hello, everyone. How's it going? Thanks for coming here. So I'm going to write a couple symptoms up on the board here, if I can do that. Symptoms. Bowel changes, sleep issues, fatigue, and A and D, anxiety and depression. We're going to talk about two conditions that are symptoms, that these are symptoms of those conditions that could land you in a mental health practitioner's office. So it's always important that when we think about mental health, we don't just think about there's something wrong with my brain, my wiring is kooky. Lots of things can happen, right? I'm addressing physiological stress. That is, something is going wrong here in your body. So the two areas that I want to talk about are the most common causes I see that are physiological problems that lead to anxiety and depression. Okay, I'm going to talk about the digestion link. We're going to talk about blood sugar and thyroid. I'm going to talk about adaptogens. It's a type of category of herbs, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. So there's 4 common causes of physiological stress I see in my practice: blood sugar, thyroid, digestion issues, and mold exposure. Today I'm going to talk about the first 2 as they pertain to digestive, because mold is a very large conversation. We could talk about that for 4 hours, and it would still not be enough because it's a very complex situation. So if you have been exposed to mold and you have a new onset of neuropsychiatric symptoms, and it's a new office, new home, new whatever, I don't care how brand new the building is. There's a building being built right near my home. It's been raining and snowy. And the newer materials are more susceptible to mold damage than older building materials are. So it's complex, as you can tell. In my job, naturopathic doctors do 3 things. We give the body what it needs, we help the body take out the trash, and we get out the way. That's my brain, that's your brain. We don't micromanage, because that, as these lovely practitioners shared, when we think too much and like start catastrophizing, it's easy to start having psychosomatic or symptoms manifest in our body. I am not here to say that that's what's going on, though, for you. We're doing investigation to see, is there something actually going on? I love labs. Okay, labs are very, very helpful here. So in relation to blood sugar and thyroid, I'm going to actually talk about a couple labs that are very valuable. If a person comes to me and I'm suspecting thyroid or blood sugar issues, they will have digestive issues. Are bowel changes not digestive issues? And then you throw in, I can't sleep because I'm awake all night, I'm peeing 3 times at night, I'm feeling anxious, and then you feel not good the next day. And then when we don't feel our best because we've been stressed out from not sleeping and not pooping or having way too much poop, guess what? We make poorer choices. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to eat the things that we know that make our body feel good. And so then it's this vicious cycle that just constantly perpetuates itself. So all road leads to digestion for one of the reasons I said, but minerals is the main reason I want to bring up. Minerals are so critical to the function in our body. So when we actually step back and look at the biochemistry, minerals are used to help our thyroid function. Minerals are used in our body to make our pancreas function. Pancreas is the organ that lives about right here, and it's the thing that produces insulin. It's the thing that says, hey, do we have insulin resistance or not? Can we eat this bolus of really lovely Valentine's Day candy that's coming up, right? Mineral absorption requires 2 things. You need to eat them, which that's, again, a larger conversation. So, if you want to talk to me about soil health, we can talk about that after. And number 2, we need to digest them. And after the age of 30, our digestive function in our stomach, where we primarily break down our minerals for absorption in the small intestine, starts to go down. I wish that this was wrong. I want the body to be this thing, but we all get those wrinkles at some point, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is blood sugar. These are the main symptoms I want you to keep in mind, but I'm going to rattle off some symptoms that are pertaining specifically to blood sugar. Irritability, anxiety, hangry, moodiness, shakiness, dry mouth, increased thirst, increased urination, headaches, depression, fatigue, waking up frequently, night sweats. Sounds kind of vague and like non-specific, right? You can kind of like go to a few different places. Not every person is going to have every one of these symptoms. They may come and they may feel fatigued and a little bit of like hangry. I know we all have seen those funny memes, ha ha ha, funny. It is, but it's also a symptom of something going on in our body. I'm going to rattle again here for a minute, but I want you to understand that there is lots of minerals that our body uses. So minerals that the pancreas needs to help manage our blood sugar is chromium, vanadium, iodine, iron, magnesium, cobalt, calcium, boron, selenium, zinc. 10 things. So we can all just take the one mineral that we hear about the person on social media that's been talking about it, or we can actually understand that it's complex. There's not just one thing, and it really does require a little bit of a step back, and let's look at the bigger picture of what's going on here. So a few labs that I like to run when I'm considering a patient that's dealing with blood sugar issues. Insulin is a must. It's a huge thing that's being missed in conventional medicine. It's a $10 test under my lab, so it's pretty inexpensive in my mind, so might as well run it and see where we're at. Hemoglobin A1C, glucose, and then there's something called the HOMO-IR. If you guys have my packet, I forget what the acronym is, but basically it's a calculation that uses insulin and glucose to determine where a person's level of insulin resistance is sitting. And anything greater than 2 is considered insulin resistant. Anything greater than 8 is diabetic type 2. So I'm specifically speaking about type 2 diabetes as opposed to autoimmune insulin-dependent type 1. Okay, so I want to share a case with you guys. And keep in mind when I share these cases, 1, I've changed information so you cannot identify the person. And 2, I picked my most fun cases, and it's not always this simple. It would be more fun if it was, but it's really great to like showcase like something, hey, this was a 30-year-old female with bipolar 1, for those of you that are unfamiliar, has manic episodes and depressive episodes, and she said that her manic episodes were a lot of fun. She had insomnia and extreme productivity, but then she would have the crash of, I feel so depressed, really suicidal, and for weeks. And the first time this has happened, her family member took her to see a psychiatrist. They diagnosed her with bipolar disorder based on her clinical presentation, as well as her family history. She did have another family member that had bipolar. They prescribed her the most common medication, which if anybody's taken psych meds knows that there's oftentimes unpleasant symptoms of those medications. In her case, it was fatigue and weight gain and just like feeling flat. She's like, I don't like the way I feel. So during our initial visit, we start talking about, and she didn't see someone like Lisa who was asking some of these questions that are very important. During our initial appointment, we discussed nutrition, and that I found out she was living off of caffeinated beverages and a simple carbohydrate diet. I'm not against either of those things, but the problem is she wasn't eating protein or fat, which are very important for helping our body manage blood sugar. Also, there are macronutrients, meaning they're the most important things that we're putting in our body. Okay, we ran some labs, including the blood sugar panel. She was pre-diabetic and had insulin resistance. She's in her 30s, so remember that. Our treatment plan was pretty simple, but it's important that we keep in mind that when someone comes to us, that sometimes simple does not mean easy. So just keep that in mind. Our primary treatment was eating 25 grams of protein 3 times a day. She was eating maybe 10, maybe. So that we jumped her from 10 to about 75. That's quite a bit. We have her eating protein first when she eats her meals, and we have her taking a digestive enzyme, a multi-mineral, and we have her walking after her largest meal, which for most Americans is dinner. I believe for her it was lunchtime. And caffeine, only with food. So notice I didn't cut anything out. We just modified and massaged it and added things in. I love being able to do this for people because it exemplifies that we don't have to be gluten-free, dairy-free, all the things free, and life is boring and fun, and thumbs down. Okay? This is why it's important that we look at the symptoms as symptoms, and just because someone gets diagnosed with bipolar does not mean she has it. Now, keep in mind too, not everybody with bipolar is actually protein deficient. There could be other underlying causes, but you get the idea that like we need to investigate. Just because someone slaps a diagnosis on it doesn't mean that that stops there. Okay? So after about a month of this protein-forward diet, and this patient was also very motivated, so that's something to keep in mind too, she was able to come off her medications, and the diagnosis of bipolar 1 was removed. Because the problem was she was drinking too much caffeine, which I feel like for her, if I'm remembering correctly, was energy drinks, and she was not eating very much protein. So she's just burning her body out. Okay, so symptoms, let's talk about thyroid. Thyroid also has these, and then you add in like, I'm feeling really hot, or I'm feeling really cold, and like some of these other like weird symptoms. So again, I'm gonna rattle. Moodiness, changes in bowels, changes in sleep patterns, increased heart rate, headaches, dry skin, hair thinning, hair loss, fatigue, difficulty swallowing, night sweats, temperature issues. Again, vague, full body symptom presentation, but the person could be just worried that they have that increased heart rate. They go in get an EKG, and they run it, and they say, you're probably just having panic attack or anxiety, probably go see a psychiatrist, right? And easily dismissed. There was actually an EDM, electronic dance music DJ that died because no one bothered to look at his thyroid condition just last year. They missed it, okay? So thyroid micronutrients, there's actually less that are very important for the thyroid than there were for the pancreas. Iron, zinc, magnesium, selenium, iodine, copper, manganese. So you can take the one thing, but if you're not having stomach acid to digest the minerals so we can actually absorb them, and again, supplementation is something I do use in my practice because the soil is deplete. Again, a much larger conversation. All right, labs that are important. Conventional practitioners only run TSH. That's a brain hormone, not a thyroid hormone. So we really need to understand that conversion of T4 to T3 happens in the liver. All right, I'm unfortunately not going to get to go through my second case, but I will move on briefly to adaptogenic herbs, which was exemplified in that thyroid case, so forgive me. And if you want to talk, I'll be out. Adaptogenic herbs, it's important that we define. Adaptogens help our body adapt to stress. Okay, we take them over a period of time. You can take ibuprofen, it has one thing. Herbs have an additive effect. They don't just affect one thing one day, and that's the end of it. There's a lot of different adaptogens. We'll talk about one because it's the safest and my favorite one. Plus it tastes really good as a tea. And we have a local grower in Paonia. So if you want his contact info, I'm happy to provide it because then you're getting something local from the area. Tulsi tea or holy basil. Fabulous, tastes delicious. And interestingly, it's the only thing that's a leaf that's an adaptogen that I'm aware of, as opposed to everything else, which is a root. Tastes fantastic. Herbs are great because they work together with our body. They help hold hands. So we talked about physiological stressors like blood sugar and stress. blood sugar and thyroid being the causes of things like big diagnoses like bipolar disorder or anxiety and depression. It's time to pop the hood and stop accepting a diagnosis that's been slapped on without further investigation. Thank you so much.
Okay, if you guys could, in the kind of between times, send your name, just the name one, down to the end row, and that end person just kind of hold on to those, and I'll walk by in a moment to put them into our collection jar. And our last presenter today is Elisabeth Lava. Lava Check is her full name, but she goes by Elisabeth Lava. And Elisabeth is National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. She is certified as a life coach through International Coaching Federation, and she's a certified spiritual emergence coach through Integrative Mental Health University. She is a yoga and meditation instructor, and her business is Lava Be Well LLC. So. Doing business as Be True You. Yeah.
Hold on, you need the yeah.
Okay, wow, wow, wow. So much wisdom in this room. It's such an honor and kind of, wow, what's left to talk about after all of you? But we all know that you have your own inherent wisdom and inner healing intelligence. And so part of what I want to do today with you is to guide you through a little bit of introspection, to tap into your own intuition. You've heard a lot. Some of it is new. Some of it is probably reminders of what you already know. And so what I want to do with the introspection is to look at kind of the 10,000-foot view of your life and see, is it too complicated? Because that's a lot of times what our stress is caused by, although we have the catastrophic events, right? A lot. So, but before that, I just want to, wow, they went so much into body and mind. And as you heard, I'm a health, life, and spiritual coach. And I kind of feel like coach is like a misnomer because a lot of us, when we think about coaching, we think of, you know, the sports coach that tells you to do 25 push-ups and all. But, you know, coaches really witness you in terms of what your own wisdom is and hearing from you what your own, you know, what your bad habits are. And behavior change is really hard. I worked in public health for 20 years trying to make the community as healthy as possible so that it's easier for you to make healthy choices. And I got really frustrated because I was like, still aren't making healthy choices. I think I'm going to switch my career because we live in the healthiest country in the world in terms of what our infrastructure is. And so we still make bad habits as part of our lives. So what's left, we really talked a lot about the body and the mind. And so I'm also a spiritual coach and a spiritual emergence coach. So that's what's left to talk about. So I'd like to look at our lives as being a spiritual being having a human experience. So how many of you would like to have a simpler life? You see, show of hands. Okay. All right, great. So our modern society has encouraged us to have a complicated life, which bombards our nervous system, stimulating the sympathetic nervous system. You've heard this over and over again, fight and flight. But other than the location you were born in, the body you were born into, which actually is completely remodeling all the time, and your family that you're born into, you are the architect of your life. Okay, and so how many of you would like a fuller life? Okay, fuller life. Okay, so if you're someone who has a very spacious life, or maybe you're in a spacious chapter of your life right now, that is an incredible opportunity to pause and design your life to be simple and yet fulfilling. So for clients who express that they're stressed out, I take them through an introspection exercise to reflect on their daily life in body, mind, and spirit. I mean, the vast majority of us still need to earn money, and we have family or friends we have to interact with. And hopefully your work is in alignment with your purpose and your talents. You trying to turn off your phone? It's all good. And hopefully you know how to connect harmoniously with those in your life. Okay. And hopefully you carve out time for all the self-care these lovely ladies talk to you about. The question is, do you feel balanced in your body, mind, and spirit in your work and your personal life? So I just want to pause and talk about the spiritual aspect of stress. We do know that forgiveness and compassion of ourselves and others are critical. And there are free, powerful courses on self-compassion and forgiveness. To let go, just to let go of past hurts, grudges, and resentments. And then to carve out time for spiritual or contemplative practices and community that are right for you. I just gave a talk at the Montrose Hospital to healthcare providers about spiritual competency in healthcare. I don't have time to explain what I said to them, but I did show them that there's thousands of studies that show that having a spiritual life is extremely protective against depression and anxiety. I had to have an earth-shattering, stripping life event over and over and over again to then go there. Clinically depressed, the whole thing, suicidal ideation, yeah. So there are contemplative practices. Go ahead and, yes. So I'm going to go into, this is just an image about contemplative practices. So just don't look at that for a minute, listen to me. Okay, shouldn't have put that up just yet. So having healthy ways of calming your mind that are both scientific and ancient, which have endured through millennia. They've been shown to reduce stress and support both mental and physical health. Like I love how Dulce, was talking about breath. All of these ladies talked about breath work. I mean, there's certain ones that are actually in peer-reviewed scientific literature now that show that to release trauma from the system, like alternate nostril breathing, if any of you guys know about that. So there are so many ancient practices that have been proven to calm and transform the mind. Meditation, breath work, affirmations to shift your thoughts and your mindset, mantra, that's actually what that word means, chanting and prayer. Many of our thoughts are extremely self-destructive, as Dulce was talking about. And so these practices actually help to purify the mind of negativity. And then following those practices with a contemplative practice, such as journaling and introspection, support you to tap into your own wisdom. The answers usually are already within you on how to manage your stress. And over time, such practices allow you to see your life more from a 10,000-foot level and see what's my part? What's my part in this stress that's in my life? And then supports you in making healthy decisions. There's a lot of times there's things we can't control. Contemplative practices have figured prominently in religious, philosophical, and humanistic traditions since antiquity. And contemplative practices are typically viewed as practical methods to bring about a state of enduring well-being or inner flourishing. Those last two quotes are not mine. That's from an article from the journal, from JAMA's Psychiatry Journal. So how about, would you guys like to do a little introspection? How many minutes do we have left? 5 minutes left. Okay. So in your handout, if you flip to my section, there are some questions there. So just pick maybe 3 questions there. And before we get started, I'd like to do, are you guys open to do just a tiny bit of breath work and meditation? You game? And then we do this? Okay. All right. So I'm going to invite you just to put down your paper for a minute. Put down your pens. Just put it in your lap. And anything I say is an invitation. You can just skip anything that it's just an invitation just to quiet the mind for a minute. I invite you to relax the hands in your lap. Feeling the feet on the ground. Relaxing the eyelids. Feeling the chair underneath you. If you wish, you can put one hand on the heart and one hand on the belly. And just start witnessing your breath. Feeling the chest rise and fall. Maybe the belly's going in and out. And then slowly dropping the hand that's on your heart down to the other hand and bringing both hands into your lap. And if you can, while you keep the eyelids relaxed, shifting the gaze upwards to the point between your eyebrows. The eyes flutter, that's okay, you can just relax. And on the next inhale, go ahead and take control of your breath. Take a nice, long, slow, deep inhale through the nostrils. And tense the hands and the forearms. And imagine you're grabbing onto any negative thought, worry, concern. Vibrate. 2, 1. Double exhale the mouth. Cast it out. And relax again. One more time. As the breath starts to come in, take control of it. Long, slow, deep inhale through the nostrils. And at the top, contract the hands again. Vibrate with tension. And double exhale. And letting go of control of the breath. Slowly coming back. It's just witnessing your breath. Let's wiggle the toes and fingers. Flutter the eyes open. All right, now you can grab your pen, your paper. Take a look at those questions. So here's the overarching question. You could just do this. How much time do I spend to allow myself and others in my life to both grow and rest in body, mind, and spirit? So you could just answer that or pick one or two questions from what's on the paper. Just a moment, just reflecting. Okay, so sorry I want to spend more time in introspection, but how was that? So one way you could do this also is sometimes I have clients where I just ask them, tell me in the life of the day of Susan, whoever I'm talking to. And then you can also just do some introspection of like hour by hour, what does a typical day look like, during your week and during your weekend. So here's one last thing to write down, and you can do it afterwards later. After reviewing your typical day, what do you want to shift to feel less stressed and more balance? Another way would be, what's the one step you can take in the next week to manage your time and shift your daily schedule to take better care of yourself and yet still be there for the other responsibilities in your life? So if you like this, if you want to go deeper and some breath work, a little gentle movement, some introspection, this is the view from land I own, but close to Uray, between Uray and Ridgeway, and I put retreats on there. So if you ever want to join me, you can see me afterwards. And this experience is much richer if you have a holistic coach or psychotherapist, or any of these healers would do wonderful, to ask open-ended questions specific to what you share about your life, and have the coach or therapist help you reflect on what you share. So that's it. I think I'm done. Okay, thank you. It's fun.
For being so attentive. Hopefully you picked up some good little tidbits there. While I do the raffle, if you guys can have time to write your question. So if you have a question that you'd like to be answered by the panel in this format, you can put it on that index card, and I'll grab that from you after the raffle, and then I'll read some questions to our panel members. And in the meantime, let's give out some prizes.
Oh, here. You can do this off of this. There. And put it on the panel there. Now we're all up there on the.
Right down the line. Let's do this one. It's for the teacher. Yolanda. Oh, well, nice. Here we are. All right, we're going to do the stainless steel water bottle now.
Oh, sweet. Whose gift is that? Yours? Oh, it's cool. Good idea.
Karen Floyd.
Oh, nice. Stay hydrated.
All right, we have a gift certificate here. This is from Elisabeth. 2 sessions with Elisabeth Lava here. Draw a name. Bethany Mary.
Oh. Oh.
We have, okay, this is from Dulce. Dig a little deeper down in here. Chris Rushing.
So cool.
Okay, we had 2 from Jules. Melanie Burke. And I'm assuming this is from Sarah. 45 minutes of yoga or mindfulness?
Oh.
Donnelly Brown. She won again. She won last time. Yeah.
Like a rabbit's foot.
All right. If
Is
you
she not here?
have a question card, you can hold it up or pass it down the way. Sure. Well, I think we can do 4. forgive my reading if there am I taping off? NPR has recently published an article on the benefits of a ketogenic diet in helping with mental health conditions.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the keto diet? And I think Shayna, let's get that.
Yeah, that's a Shayna question. Yeah.
Mike,
Oh, yeah.
for the recording.
Oh, I think I still have it on. I'm sorry. I should have given it to you guys a while ago.
The question is pertaining to an article NPR wrote on ketogenic diet for mental health. I haven't seen that article, so forgive me. From a medical perspective, the ketogenic diet, the best results that I have seen are with people that have seizure and other like really severe neurological conditions. The ketogenic diet is very tricky. Ketosis, is a biochemical process. So if you have a cheat day, one yam, one piece of bread, one high carbohydrate something, even something like cabbage might be too much carbs, it takes 3 to 5 days to get into ketosis. So it's a tricky thing, and it's very difficult for your body to stay there. I do not make a blanket recommendation that people do ketogenic diet. I know you can lose weight and all these things. I'm a fan of what is sustainable, and long-term ketogenic diet without there being severe neurological conditions, I just don't see it being that beneficial.
Okay, this is for Dulce. What is the role of hypnotherapy for addressing stress?
What is the rule for hypnotherapy? Role. Oh, the role. Oh, gosh, that thing is blinding. You know, the thing with hypnotherapy is to encourage relaxation. That's what hypnotherapy does. It takes you into this. It bypasses the natural ego defenses. It bypasses even a lot of the conditioning that we have and goes directly to the unconscious and addresses what's happening in the unconscious. So if, for example, there's been a trauma and there's stress in the body, under hypnosis, which includes the first period, which is induction, just the gentle journey into relaxing and being calm and in the body, and sometimes tricking the mind, which is a big part of it, to trick the mind so that it doesn't know that it's being hypnotized, and then going directly to that body part. Sometimes even evoking the help of an inner healer, for example. I know in my own case, I have a little team of tiny little people. They have wheelbarrows and oil and all sorts of, and flashlights and hoses, and they do a lot of, if my throat is sore, I'll just self-hypnotize, and they'll come out and they have a little high pressure, and then they've got the wheelbarrows, and so it's amazing what the unconscious can do, and that's the role of hypnotherapy, is to get right in there in the fecund richness of your inner world and claim it for your health again. So.
Thank you. So this one might be good for maybe Lisa or Shayna, if you either feel good about answering, but what supplements are best for helping with sleep?
I have a feeling you're not going to like my answer. I'm sorry. We have to find why you're having sleep issues, right? And so we can make recommendations for supplements all day, like magnesium or adaptogens, or maybe you have blood sugar issues and your blood sugar's dipping and that's why you're waking up, or maybe your prostate's enlarged. You see where I'm going, or maybe you just had one of those awful things happen and your life just exploded and you're lying awake and you can't sleep because you're thinking about what needs to happen there. And in my mind, there are things that we can do that are supportive, like adaptogenic herbs, and magnesium can be very beneficial. Again, we need to be very mindful because magnesium and calcium are friends, and a lot of what I see is people can take very high doses of magnesium and skew their electrolytes, and it is dangerous. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if Lisa has anything to add.
No.
Okay.
No, I think you got it.
And this is probably a good question just for everybody up here. If any of you take insurance, raise your hands if you take insurance. Yeah.
Can I say something? If you have a health savings account or FSA, or there's one other type of account, I have it in my booth. You can use that to pay for National Board Certified Health Coach to support you. So if you have those accounts, you can tap into that.
Most, as well, if you really need sliding scale, ask for sliding scale. So.
Sliding scale. I also do payment plans, so spreading, like if you had 6 sessions with me, 2 a month, let's say, you could spread those payments over 6 months. You know, just making it a lower monthly payment, but you might pay beyond the termination of our time and our work together. That's something that I offer as well.
Great. So there will be time afterwards. We have about 30 minutes. All these practitioners will be at their booth, and I'll be at the Healing Collective booth. So come by and say hi if you have any other questions to ask or want a card or whatever. So thank you guys so much.